I let my best friend stay in my apartment for a few months while she got back on her feet. At first, she acted grateful. Then she started wearing my clothes without asking. She rearranged my home as if it belonged to her. She invited strangers over while I was at work and sometimes while I was sleeping. But none of that prepared me for the Saturday her own sister knocked on my door, sat down in my living room, and showed me what Valerie had been telling her entire family about me. That was the day I realized I had never truly known my best friend. And the worst part was that I had only been trying to help her. My name is Megan. I'm 29 years old, and this is the story of how the person I called my sister for 13 years slowly dismantled my peace from inside my own home. It's also the story of why part of what happened was my fault. Not because I deserved any of it, but because I saw the warning signs and kept convincing myself that loyalty meant ignoring them. Valerie and I met in 10th grade. She transferred to my school in the middle of the year and was assigned the seat beside mine. By the end of that first week, we were inseparable. We survived everything together after that. Breakups, terrible first jobs, her parents' divorce, the year my father was sick. She sat beside me in a hospital waiting room when I was 22 and held my hand while I waited for news. Years later, when a landlord gave her 2 weeks to move, I helped her pack her entire apartment into boxes until almost 3 in the morning. 13 years. She wasn't just my friend. She was the sister life had given me. I need you to understand that, because 13 years of history can make you excuse things you would never tolerate from someone you met yesterday. Last spring, Valerie lost her job. She worked for a marketing agency, and her entire team was eliminated during a round of layoffs. At first, she acted as though she was fine. She joked about finally having time to sleep. She sent me memes about unemployment. She told everyone she was enjoying a temporary vacation. But I knew her. Whenever Valerie was scared, she became funnier. 2 months later, she was behind on rent. She never directly asked me for help, but I could see that she was drowning. So I didn't hesitate. "Stay with me," I told her, "just for a few months, until you find something stable. The couch folds out, and honestly, it might be nice having company." She stared at me for a few seconds and then started crying. She hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. "You're the only person who has never made me feel small," she whispered. Remember that sentence. It matters later. The first 2 weeks were wonderful. She cooked dinner twice. She bought hand soap and candles for the bathroom. We stayed awake watching terrible reality shows, laughing like we were 17 again. I remember lying in bed one night and feeling proud of our friendship. This is what family does, I thought. This is what all those years were for. The first warning sign appeared during the third week. It was small enough that I stepped right over it. I came home from work and immediately knew something was different. My living room had been completely rearranged. The couch was against another wall. My books had been reorganized by color instead of by author. The lamps had been moved. Even the framed photographs on the shelves were in different places. My grandmother's ceramic bowl, the one I always kept near the entry table, had been moved to a high shelf in the corner. Valerie appeared from the kitchen, smiling, clearly proud of herself. "Your place was so disorganized," she said. "I fixed it. Doesn't everything flow better now?" I stood there, looking at the bowl. My grandmother had given it to me shortly before she died. I kept it near the door because seeing it every morning made me think of her. Something inside me immediately said, "She should have asked you." But what came out of my mouth was, "Thank you." I thanked her for rearranging my home without permission. That was my first mistake. I confused avoiding conflict with protecting the friendship. And every time I made that trade over the next 2 months, the price became higher. A coworker named Dana noticed the problem before I did. I mentioned the rearranging during lunch one afternoon, laughing as though it were just another funny Valerie story. Dana put down her fork. "Wait," she said, "she reorganized your entire apartment?" "Pretty much." "Without asking you?" "She was trying to help." Dana stared at me. "Megan, whose apartment is it?" "Mine, obviously." Then pay attention to something, she said. Notice whether Valerie asks you for things or simply tells you what she has decided. I laughed and told her she was overthinking it. You already know she wasn't. After the furniture came the guests. One Thursday, I returned home from work and heard voices before I had even opened the door. There were 3 people in my living room. All of them were strangers. Their laptops were open on my coffee table. They were drinking from my good mugs. One of them had taken off his shoes and had his feet on my couch. Valerie looked up as if this were completely normal. "Oh, these are some friends from my old job," she said. "I told them they could work from here today. You don't mind, right?" She asked me in front of them. That was deliberate. If I said yes, I was generous. If I said no, I became the rude, selfish woman kicking Valerie's friends out of a room they had already settled into. So I smiled. Of course not. 2 days later, I walked into my kitchen at 7 in the morning, wearing an oversized t-shirt, barely awake, and found a man standing at my counter making coffee. He turned and smiled. "Oh, sorry, I'm Oscar. Val invited me over for breakfast." I froze. Valerie appeared behind him a moment later, calm and fully dressed. She looked at my face and laughed. "Relax, girl, you're so tense." I was tense, in my own kitchen, because a man I had never met had been invited into my home while I was sleeping, and the person I was housing for free was telling me to relax. I should have confronted her then. Instead, I went back to my bedroom, got dressed, and left early for work. Then she started taking my clothes. At first, I thought I was imagining it. A blouse disappeared from my closet and later appeared in Valerie's laundry pile. A week later, I saw a photo of her on Instagram wearing one of my jackets at a rooftop bar. I hadn't been invited. Then she borrowed my favorite black dress, the one I wore to my father's retirement dinner. She never asked, not once. Whenever I mentioned that something was missing, she acted amused. "We're basically sisters," she would say. "Why are you being weird about clothes?" But sisters ask, and guests definitely ask. The clothes weren't even the worst part. The worst part was the constant stream of comments. Small comments, the kind that sound almost harmless if you repeat them to someone else. "Should you be eating that? I'm just looking out for you." "You're still at that job? I thought you wanted to actually grow." "You still talk to your ex? Megan, that's embarrassing." Each comment was delivered with a smile. Each one was small enough that confronting her would make me appear sensitive. And almost every time she said one, she was sitting in my home, eating my food or holding a mug I owned. I wasn't stupid. I was loyal. There is a difference. People who love deeply know exactly what I mean. Every red flag came attached to 13 years of memories. You don't want to believe that the person who held your hand in a hospital waiting room is now humiliating you in your own kitchen. You don't throw away a friendship over a moved couch, or a borrowed blouse, or one inappropriate guest. So you swallow each incident individually. You tell yourself it isn't serious enough. You wait for something undeniable. The problem is that when you keep swallowing little things, eventually you become full of them. The Saturday everything finally broke open, I was cleaning my bedroom when someone knocked on the door. It was Claudia, Valerie's younger sister. Claudia was 24 and much quieter than Valerie. I knew her, but we had never been particularly close. She stood in my doorway holding her phone. Her expression made me nervous immediately. "Is Valerie here?" she asked. "No, she went out." "Good," Claudia said. "I need to talk to you." She entered and sat on the couch, the same couch Valerie had moved. Then she looked directly at me. "I need to show you something, because if I only tell you, you'll find a way to excuse her. You always do." My stomach tightened. Claudia opened the family group chat on her phone and began scrolling. There were weeks of messages from Valerie. At first, I didn't understand what I was reading. Then Claudia handed me the phone. One message said, "Honestly, Megan is lucky I moved in. Her apartment was a disaster." Another said, "I'm basically covering things here. She's much worse with money than she lets people know." Then, "I'm kind of rebuilding her life for her. She's so insecure, you have no idea." I stared at the screen. I was paying the rent. I was paying the utilities. Most weeks, I was buying the groceries. Valerie had contributed some candles, hand soap, and 2 cooked dinners. But according to her, she was supporting me. Then I reached the message that took the air out of my lungs. One of her aunts had asked whether she had found a new apartment. Valerie replied, "No rush. Honestly, Megan needs me here more than I need her. She just doesn't know how to be alone." I read it twice, then a third time. I was allowing her to live in my home for free. I was feeding her. I was giving her time to rebuild her life, and she had convinced her entire family that I was the charity case. Claudia watched me silently. Then she said something I still think about. "My sister has envied you since high school." I looked at her. "What?" She continued, "I've watched it for years. You were always the steady one, the one teachers trusted, the one adults praised. Even when you were both struggling, people believed you would figure things out." I didn't know what to say. Claudia looked around my apartment. "She couldn't stand needing your help again," she said, "so she created a version of the story where you needed her. Now she gets to live inside the life she envies and tell everyone she's the one holding it together." I didn't cry in front of Claudia. I thanked her. She had taken a real risk by coming to me, and I knew it would cause problems between her and her sister. After she left, I sat alone in my rearranged living room. The afternoon light moved slowly across the floor. For months, I had felt anxious, irritated, and guilty without fully understanding why. Now, I understood. I wasn't overreacting. I wasn't selfish. I wasn't too tense. Someone had entered my home, crossed every boundary I had, and then rewritten the story so that she appeared to be rescuing me. By the time Valerie returned that evening, I was sitting at the kitchen table. Both of my hands were wrapped around a cup of tea I hadn't touched. "We need to talk," I said. Her smile disappeared. "I know what you've been telling your family." She didn't respond. "I know you told them you're paying things here, that you reorganized my life, that I'm insecure, that I need you because I don't know how to be alone." Her face changed. For 1 second, she looked frightened. Then she became angry. "You know Claudia showed you, didn't she?" I had expected denial, an excuse, maybe even an apology. Instead, she exploded. "You know what? Fine, yes, I said those things." I stared at her. "Why?" "Because that's what people already think anyway," she shouted. "You're always the perfect one, the stable one, the mature one, the person everyone trusts." "This isn't about high school, Valerie. It has always been about that." Her voice cracked. "Do you know what it's like standing beside you for 13 years? You're always the one helping me. You're always the one with everything under control. Everyone admires you, and I'm always the disaster you have to rescue." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "I offered you a place to stay because I love you. You know I do." She said, "I know. That's the problem." For the first time, I saw what had apparently been hiding beneath our friendship since we were teenagers. To me, helping her had been an act of love. To Valerie, accepting that help had felt like proof that she was beneath me. "I have always been the poor friend," she said more quietly, "the unstable one, the one who needs something. Just once, I wanted to be the strong one. I wanted people to believe I was the person helping you. Even if you had to invent it?" She looked away. "Even if you had to humiliate me to do it?" She said nothing. Then, almost in a whisper, she said, "I didn't think you'd find out." That sentence ended the friendship, not because she had no explanation, but because she had no remorse. She didn't say, "I'm sorry." She didn't say, "I didn't mean to hurt you." She said she didn't think I would find out. I took a slow breath. "Valerie, I love you. 13 years don't disappear in one night, but I cannot live with someone who needs to make me smaller so she can feel important." Her eyes filled with tears. "I need you to move out." She cried. She told me the job loss had affected her more than she realized. She said she had been confused, depressed, and ashamed. Maybe some of that was true. She promised she would change. She reminded me of everything we had survived together. For a few seconds, I almost gave in. That was the old pattern. She would become emotional, I would remember our history, and suddenly her behavior would become less important than protecting her feelings. But this time, I didn't bend. I'm not asking you to explain it again, I told her. I'm telling you that you cannot live here anymore. She moved out 2 days later. I helped carry her final box to her cousin's car. Some people might think that was weak. Maybe it was. But 13 years meant something to me, even if they meant something very different to her. Over the following week, I had to ask for 6 pieces of my own clothing back. One of them arrived in a plastic laundry bag smelling like a bar. Valerie blocked me on everything shortly afterward. I let her. I understand her better now than I did that night. She wasn't competing with me because I challenged her. She was competing with a version of me she had created in her own mind. For 13 years, she had been measuring herself against me using a ruler I never gave her. She believed that every time I succeeded, she failed. Every time I helped her, she felt humiliated. And instead of confronting that insecurity, she created a story in which she was superior and I was secretly falling apart. Understanding that helped me stop blaming myself. But it didn't make what she did forgivable. My home is quiet again. The couch is back where I originally placed it. My books are organized the way I like them, and my grandmother's ceramic bowl is sitting on the entry table where I can see it every morning. For months, I thought keeping the peace meant staying silent. Now I know that peace built on swallowed resentment isn't peace, it's permission. I was never Valerie's enemy, but somewhere along the way, she decided I was hers. And while she was secretly trying to destroy the way people saw me, I was paying her rent. So tell me honestly, when someone says, I didn't think you'd find out, instead of, I'm sorry, is there anything left worth saving? Drop your verdict in the comments and subscribe because here, one story always leads to another.